Hey, what's new and exciting? It's Kevin O'Shaughnessy here, and by the end of this lesson, you are going to learn how to master that effing F chord. Hey, what's up? I hope you're staying safe. Let's talk about that F chord. Now, I don't know about you, but when I was starting out learning how to play guitar, the F chord was probably one of the hardest things I ever had to take on. And, well, it was a pain. So what I want to do is I want to share with you some exercises that I have come up with over the years that have helped my students out a lot. Unfortunately, they didn't really help me much because I came up with them after I had really learned how to play this chord. But hopefully you'll get some use out of them, so let's jump into it. First thing I'm going to say before we get going is that there really is no easy way to play this chord. It's a lot of muscle conditioning. So even if your mechanics are perfect, and if you subscribe to this channel, I hope they'd be pretty good because that's mostly what I talk about, you're still going to have to take some time to condition the muscles. This is a hard chord to play. It uses all of the fingers. That's just the way it is. So if you can embrace that up front, I have no doubt you'll be able to master this chord and use it effortlessly in your playing. So in case you are not aware, the F chord is what we call a bar chord or a movable chord. And basically what we're doing is we're taking the E major shape, we're changing the fingering slightly so we can use our first finger to create a new nut behind that shape so that we can move it all up and down the neck, like this. Pretty cool, right? So basically what I'm doing is I'm taking the E chord, right, which is I use my first, second, and third fingers to play. I'm switching that fingering with the second, third, and fourth fingers. And you can see that my first finger now just sits over the nut. Well, if I start bringing this up the neck, that's where I get the movable chord. Like so. Now, I'm not going to get too much into the physics of the guitar, but one important thing to pay attention to is that playing anything at the first or second fret is kind of hard. It's just sort of the way the guitar is designed, which is part of the reason why we need to condition ourselves to be able to play things at the first and second fret. Things in the middle of the neck should feel a lot easier. The only variation on that, I would say, is if your guitar is set up with a pretty high action, in which case notes in the middle of the neck are going to be probably a little harder to play than down on the first fret. So conditioning exercise number 1 is basically start high and go low. So if you can't play the F chord at the first fret, see if you can get it up at maybe the 7th fret, like this. If you can get all of the notes to ring clearly from there, then what you want to do is just gradually take it down the neck. Now, I wouldn't expect you to be able to get that all in one go. As a matter of fact, it still might take you a few weeks to get to that level where you can play it on every fret. You might find that you get from the 7th fret to the 4th fret, maybe your hand gets tired, maybe some of the notes get dampened and the chord doesn't sound right, so that's fine. Use that 4th fret or wherever you end up as your temporary benchmark. Try to get it to sound good in that position, then continue moving down the rest of the frets. Now, if you already know how to play a few songs, maybe you've got a bunch of them under your fingers already, but there's a couple of them that use that F chord and it's kind of a pain and you're having a hard time, or maybe you've skipped learning a few songs because it had the F chord in it, then this exercise might be up your alley. What you're going to need is a capo. Take that capo and put it at the first fret. This now does most of the heavy lifting in terms of pressing the strings against the frets. Even here at what is now, relatively speaking, the new first fret, this F chord feels really comfortable. Now, if you're also at the point where you're playing songs to recorded versions, then all you need to do is tune the guitar down 1/2 step, and that'll compensate for the capo at the first fret. Now, if neither of those exercises are working for you, then we got to condition those muscles from the ground up. Here we go. First, we need a starting point for this exercise. Take your first finger and put it on the E and B strings. And, I'm picking rather arbitrarily the 7th fret. I want to see if I can get both of those strings to sound clearly at the same time while pressing them both with the first finger. Now right there, of course, feels pretty good, but you might be able to get down to the 5th fret, or you might need to be up closer to the 9th or 10th fret. It doesn't matter where it is. Find a good starting point where you can get both of those notes to sound clearly. From there, you're going to start walking down to the 1st fret. And you'll notice that as you get closer to the nut, the notes are going to get a little harder to play. Once you can make it down to the 1st fret, add the 3rd string. So you're still just using your first finger to fret the notes, but you're going to try to grab 3 strings. Continue adding strings and moving down the neck until you can play all 6 strings with 1 finger at the 1st fret and have it sound like this. Obviously, that doesn't sound like much of a chord yet. Now we've got to start adding the other fingers. Come back to your starting point. Put your first finger over the 3 strings, E, B, and G, and then add your second finger. That's the next finger we add in this voicing. Add your second finger to the next highest fret, and it sounds like this. Now we take that down to the 1st fret. At this point, we need to add the 4th finger, or you may want to skip ahead and add the 4th and the 3rd finger. But whichever one you start with, you need to make sure that your first finger is on the same string. So if you're adding your 4th finger to this chord voicing, then make sure your first finger is grabbing the bottom 4 strings. If you're adding the 4th and the 3rd finger, of course the 3rd finger is going to be up here on the A string, make sure that your first finger is also right behind that. Again, the goal is to make sure that the first finger can get across all 6. So we don't want that to start getting weaker now because we've forgotten about it. So assuming you're going to add the 3rd and 4th fingers to this voicing, it's going to look and sound like this. Now that's most of the chord, and it actually does have all of the notes of the F chord, so it sounds pretty good. But now we're going to take it to that final step and add the 6th string. Now once you get to a point where you can play the chord well enough, by all means jump into playing songs with it. That's sort of the next step in the conditioning. We don't usually play this chord up and down the neck like I was showing here. That's just an exercise to begin conditioning. You need to start being able to make music with it as quickly as possible. Now one thing I do need to remind you of is that this will take time. Be patient. It could be months or even a year before you really start to feel comfortable with this chord. Don't let that deter you. Okay, I think it took me even longer than that, and I didn't have this method when I was learning this chord. I developed this after the fact to help my students. But be patient with it and add this to your warm-up, okay? Be diligent with it, and I promise you, you'll be able to get this chord. As a quick bonus, I'll also let you know that this method works with power chords. The same idea, start high and bring it down low. The cool part about it though is that you don't need to bar anything with power chords. You're just using the tips of your fingers like you'd play a C chord or a G chord. So you can start at the 7th fret or the 9th fret and work your way down if you're doing, say, 6-string root power chords, but you're having trouble getting it to sound good down here on like the 3rd fret or the 2nd fret or the 1st fret. Start high and just begin working your way down like we did with the F chord. If that's too hard, start at the 5th string. Do the same thing. 7th fret, 9th fret, somewhere in there as a starting point, move your way down to the 1st. If that still doesn't work for you, you can also use the D string and the G string. Use those middle 2 strings. They're generally fairly thin, so they're not too hard to play, and you can get the fingers to spread the way they need to. You're going to need your fingers to spread out a little bit more in these lower positions. So the middle strings are a really good way to get warmed up to being able to play those power chords on the lower string pairs. And it doesn't matter if you're doing the 2-string version of the power chord or the 3-string version. the method of mastering the chord works just as well. And just like the F chord, once you got to a point where you feel reasonably comfortable with the chord, but not quite, you want to start jumping into playing songs with it as soon as you can. So with that, I'll let you go practice. I hope you found that useful. If you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. If you have a specific issue that you're having trouble with, let me know what that is as well so that I can address it in a future video. Also, if you have any insights of your own and things that you've learned about playing this chord or power chords or anything like that, drop a comment so the rest of the community can benefit from it as well. I'm sure we'd all love to hear from you. In the meantime, I am Kevin O'Shaughnessy, and I will see you in the next video.